Hello and welcome to this, the first in a series of short video tutorials that will aim to show you how to develop applications using CAGen with the Studio Developer plugin. When you first start your CAGen Studio toolset, the first thing to do is pick the perspective that you want to work with, and for Studio Developer that is the developer perspective. And then you need to open up the local models view, which will list all of the models that you've worked on so far, which, because this is a new toolset, that list is blank. Just for information, once you've opened up the developer, you can close the welcome view, and then you don't have to have that cluttering up your screen. For the purpose of these tutorials, we're going to start with a brand new model and slowly build up code for a simple application, starting from very first principles. So for a new model, I use the Actions menu and pick New Model, and I give the model a name, which I will call Training, and a local name which is used as the local folder for storing the model files. Press OK, the local model is created, and you should see this Model Explorer open. And the Model Explorer is essentially a navigator which gives you access to all the various parts of the model that you need to work with. To take a look at particular aspects of the model, or objects as they're called, you can expand, for example, business systems, and we see a default business system that's been created. We're going to dive straight in and create a very simple application as like a hello world example, just to give you an idea of how the whole product hangs together, how you write code, how you create applications. And in CAGen, the applications that you write, each window or program, the main programs are called procedures or procedure steps. For now, we can treat one procedure as having one step in it. More sophisticated models might have multi-step procedures, but for now we can ignore that, and we'll just assume that each procedure has one step. So we start off by creating a new procedure, and the procedure that we want to create is going to be an application logon window. So I'm going to give it a name of logon. It's an online procedure. If we were writing a batch program, we would choose batch, but in this case it's an online procedure, and the generated code will have a source file name, and that defaults to the name of the procedure, so I'm quite happy to call that logon and press apply. So I have my procedure, which you can see here, and each procedure has at least one procedure step. So the procedure step logon is also created, and so I can open that. So there's my procedure step. For this as an online with display, this procedure step essentially is going to have a window where the user can interact with the application. So what I'm going to do is go straight away and add a window to the procedure step called logon. So there's my window, and I'm going to open that up by double clicking on it, and there is a simple window design, no controls on it because it's a brand new window. What I'm going to do, just as a very simple example, is add a push button. So I'm going to select from my tool palette here a push button, and I place that on the window. Maybe place it here, and there's a button that the user could press. Now I don't want to call it button, so I'm going to change the text to be OK down here in the properties sheet, and I'm going to just give the button name just give the control a name of OK button. So you can see here in the UI designer, we have this editing area where the window and its controls are visualized. We have a palette where we can add different types of controls and place them on the window. We have a list of the controls available to us, in which case we've got our OK button, and then for the controls themselves we have a bunch of properties. So for a push button, the properties are things like the text, the mnemonic key, so I'll put an O in there, whether it's the default button, push button, and various other properties like a help description. So help description there. So there's a variety of properties available. Now I also need to say what happens when the button is pushed. So to do that, I'm going to associate this button with something called an event. So basically what I'm saying here is when I push the button, when I click it, I want to run an event. So I'm going to name this event logon OK. And I'll save that now. So my button, when pushed, will run this logon OK event. And the actual logic that we want to run is in another part of the procedure step. So I've shown you the window for the procedure step. But the actual code is in something called an action diagram. So this is effectively the source code, and it's empty apart from this event action that was created through the user interface. Of what happens when I press the button, it runs this what's called event action. So in the action diagram is where we write the logic or the code, what we want to happen. So for example, in a very simple application, what I want to do is just output a message to the user, and to do that we use a command available in Gen called a message box. So that's a function. So if I type in fun, then the only thing available is function, so I can just press enter to complete that statement. So that's a Gen statement called function. And then the type of function is a message box. So I could, if I just start typing in M, I see the different types of functions available, like maximum, minimum. And in this case, I'm going to pick message box, and I output various parameters. So the parameters for a message box are the text you want to display, the title of the message box, the buttons on the message box, and a bitmap. If you want to look at more detail, you can look at the description of the method. So we've got the text, the title, the buttons, the style, and whether it's the modality of the message box. So I'm going to put in my text, and I'm just going to say hello and a title of welcome. So that's all I want in there. Very simple hello world example of displaying a window with a push button, and then what happens when I push that button. So I'm going to save that. Within CA-Gen, the actual procedure steps are packaged into an executable, so in this case a Windows executable. And a Windows executable could contain many procedure steps, so you may have a large application with a large number of procedure steps, and you could either package those into separate executables or package them all into one executable. So the concept of packaging is where we specify how we want our procedure steps to be included into executables. So I do that through something called window packaging, and I'm going to create a window load module. And I'm going to call the application my app, and I have here a list of the objects that can be included, the unpackaged objects. So I'm going to pick the logon and I'm just going to drag it up into here. So I've packaged my logon procedure step into my executable. And then the final thing is, if you want to actually be able to start, if you want to execute that application, we need something called a tran code. Essentially this is telling the executable which procedure step to execute. So I'm going to create a tran code of logon, and I'm going to associate as what's called the clear screen tran code. I'm going to associate that tran code with this procedure step. So press apply. That's the packaging done, and then I'm ready to generate the code. So I can expand my generation tree here, pick window generation. If this is the first time, you will need to go into the options to specify the type of code you want to generate, because with CAGen you can generate code for different platforms, Windows or Java or Unix, various, or .NET, various generation targets. And in this case we're going to generate for the operating system Windows, and the TP monitor is going to be Windows, so it's going to be a Windows application. So those are the main options you want to set. And then I'm ready to generate my executable with my procedure step. That will generate the source code, in this case for C, and I also need to build it, which is essentially compiling and link editing the load module. So I pick those and press process. It's generating and building the application, and that's complete. And now I can go ahead and test my application. So I pick the procedure step I want to test, and I pick test, and that launches the generated application. And there we have it here, the generated application, and hopefully if I press OK we get the message box pop up that we coded in the event. So just in a few minutes you can see how we've created a new procedure which has a procedure step. The procedure step has some code or logic associated with it in this thing called the action diagram, and it has a window design because it's an online windowed application. That was packaged into a load module, and then we used the generation option to generate and build the code. So that concludes this first very short introduction to CAGen with Studio Developer, and in subsequent modules we will expand on what we've seen so far and adding in introducing new concepts including database design, modules of code called action blocks, and how you model data, and also splitting up applications into client server, so where the client is running on maybe on a workstation or a web browser, and the server is running on a different platform, which may be the mainframe or a Unix server or an EJB application server. So we'll be introducing all of those extra complexities in future modules. But for now, hope you've enjoyed your first look, if it is your first look at CAGen or first look at Studio Developer, and look forward to seeing you in some of the future presentations. Thank you very much.